Good morning and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Land Use. At this time, please silence all electronic devices. If you would like to testify, you must fill out a witness slip with one of the sergeant at arms, even if you signed up online. At this time, once again, please silence all electronic devices. No one may approach the dais at any time. Chair, we are ready to begin.
All right, good morning and welcome to the Committee on Land Use. I am Councilmember Rafael Salamanca. I chair this committee. I would like to welcome my esteemed colleagues who have joined us today. We've been joined by Councilmember Mealy, Councilmember Dinowitz, and Councilmember Nurse. And we also have Councilmember Moya, who's joined us virtually. I want to thank my colleagues who have joined us today. Today we are holding a joint hearing on three proposed bills. Intro number 1433, a bill sponsored by Councilmember Dinowitz to address the lack of 2 and 3 bedroom affordable units throughout the city and the need to provide affordable housing to families. Intro 1437, a bill sponsored by Councilmember Hudson to ensure aging New Yorkers have access to a range of affordable housing that accommodates households of different sizes. And Intro 1443, a bill sponsored by Councilmember Nurse to ensure extremely low income and very low income households have sufficient access to affordable housing. You have heard me ask again and again, the city is producing affordable housing, but who is it for? Will it actually be affordable to families in the borough of the Bronx? This administration, like others before, has made it clear that their number one priority is to produce the greatest possible number of housing units, but without adequate focus on affordability, most needed for New Yorkers. We saw this in the initial City of Yes proposal that the council secured deeper commitments for affordability, and more recently in the ballot proposal that have streamlined the land use review process and that will now bypass the concerns of local communities with minimal affordability. Yes, we need to build more affordable housing. But again, I ask, housing for who? The administration's focus on unit count translates to smaller apartments with fewer bedrooms and higher rents. Our communities have been telling us for years that they cannot afford the rent set by the city for affordable apartments. Our constituents have also been telling every single member of this council that the affordable apartments that are available do not have enough bedrooms. This leaves families with children and also seniors without affordable housing options. The data on the housing production confirms that the city has steadily increased the share of studios at the expense of larger units. So now the council is proposing to take action because the housing needs of our communities are not being addressed. The bills we will discuss today focus on three crucial and critical needs. First, everyone knows that the low income levels set by the federal government, known as the Area Median Income or AMI, do not reflect the actual incomes of our constituents. The AMI set by HUD are much higher than the actual incomes of New Yorkers. For example, 80% AMI for a one person is $90,720. This is completely out of touch with the income of my constituents in the Bronx who need affordable housing. Even MIH option 1 at 60% AMI, which is $68,000 for one person, is not realistic. As a result, more of the affordable housing needs to be set at lower AMIs. This can assure that the affordable housing financed by the city will be available to those families who need them most. Second, everyone knows that families with children are leaving the city because they simply cannot afford to live here. One of the reasons families cannot afford to stay here is that they cannot find a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom apartment at affordable rents. In response to this widely recognized trend, this administration has actually decreased the number of larger units that it finances. Only 7% of recently financed new affordable units are 3 bedrooms, yet 24% of households in the city have 4 or more persons. As a result, this council is stepping in to propose requiring that the percentage of 2 and 3 bedroom units produced by the city is more in line with the percentage of families of 3 or more people. Third, everyone knows and agrees that the percentage of aging New Yorkers is increasing and that we need more senior housing. The administration has responded to this need by increasing the number of studios in senior housing projects. The problem is that our seniors have a right to age with dignity. Also, nearly 50% of the Asian households have two or more people. Yet, many of the recent senior housing projects financed by HPD have 70% or more units designated as studios. Here, the council is proposing to cap the number of studios in senior housing that the city produces. This will ensure more one and two bedroom apartments are available for our seniors. Study after study shows that the social isolation is a leading health issues for aging adults. Let's make sure aging New Yorkers have the homes they deserve. We will hear today from the Department of Housing and Preservation and Development, also known as HPD, and also from affordable housing developers regarding the need to maximize the number of units in the city that the city produces and the need for flexibility. I would like to highlight 2 points. The requirements in these bills would apply over a 5-year period and on a citywide basis. This was purposely done to ensure flexibility on a project by project basis. Also, simply stating that these bills will result in less housing misses the point. If the housing that the city produces is beyond the reach of those who need it most, then producing more for the same housing does nothing to help our constituents, New Yorkers. We as a city need to strike a balance between maximizing the number of affordable units produced and the housing need of New Yorkers. These bills will achieve that balance. Now, before we begin our testimony, I would like to remind everyone that this meeting is being held in hybrid format, and members of the public may review a live stream broadcast of this meeting at the council's website. Members of the public who wish to testify may do so either in person or via Zoom. Those wishing to testify by Zoom must register online at the New York City Council website at www.council.nyc.gov/land use to sign up. For those of you who are here in person, please be sure to see one of the Sergeant at Arms to prepare and submit a speaker card. We will limit public testimony to 2 minutes per witnesses. If you have any additional testimony or if you have written testimony you would like to submit, we ask that you please email it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. And please include the phrase intro 1433, 1437, and 1433 in the subject line of your email. Lastly, I would like to remind everyone that this is a government proceeding and decorum must be observed at all times. Members of the public are asked not to speak during the meeting unless you are testifying. The witness table is reserved for people who are called to testify, and no video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Members of the public may not present audio or video proceedings as testimony, but you may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearings recorded. Now, before I hand it off to HPD, I want to hand it off to my colleagues if they wish to make any comments. Any opening statements. Yeah. Before that, I just want to recognize we've been joined by Councilmember Sanchez and Minority Leader Ariola, and I will hand it off to Councilmember Eric Dinowitz.
Thank you, Chair Salamanca. And I want to thank you and the members on the committee for the opportunity to speak today. And Chair, I think you asked a good question: is who is the housing for? We're building all this housing, and who is it for? And we know that New York City is facing a deep and urgent housing crisis. But too often our conversations center almost exclusively on the number of units produced. And it's almost as if HPD is interested in building housing, but we in the council are interested in housing people. And so it's not considered whether these units actually meet the needs of families who call our city home. So my bill, Introduction 1433, aims to close that gap by directly addressing a fundamental mismatch between the city's housing production and the realities of New York families. Right now, the city's own term sheets incentivize buildings where 70% of these so-called affordable units are studios and one-bedroom apartments. To HPD, for housing production, that might look good on paper, but it doesn't reflect the needs of the people we represent, many of whom are families with children, multi-generational households, and New Yorkers trying to remain rooted in our communities. According to the Fiscal Policy Institute, families with young children are leaving our city faster than any other group. And the Coalition for the Homeless reports that almost 70% of people in shelters are members of homeless families. These trends are not coincidental. They stem directly from our failure to ensure that the affordable housing we build is sized for the people who need it. Intro 1433 would change this. This bill requires that for any project receiving city financial assistance, the minimum percentage of 2 and 3 bedroom apartments or rental units must correspond to the citywide share of households with 3 or 4 members and household with 5 or more members, respectively. This ensures that housing production is better aligned with the actual size and needs of New York families. The bill also limits the concentration of these 2 and 3 bedroom units so that no more than 35% are located in a single borough, ensuring families across all 5 boroughs have equitable access to appropriately sized homes. The legislation does not dictate outcomes on a single building. It creates a smarter, balanced framework for the entire pipeline of city-funded housing. It allows HPD to continue producing the volumes of units we need while ensuring future term sheets no longer leave families behind. I want to thank my colleagues, advocates, community organizations, and housing experts who've been raising this issue for years. And I want to ask my colleagues to join me as co-sponsors of this bill. If we truly want New York City to remain a city where families can stay, grow, and thrive, then the homes we build must reflect the lives we say we value. Thank you again, Chair, for the opportunity to speak today, and I look forward to working with all of you to move this legislation forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Dinowitz. Now I'd like to recognize Councilmember Sandiners.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. And thank you, Councilmember Dinowitz, for that bill. 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms are a hill to die on for me. In the 4 years that I've been a council member, I've approved and funded hundreds, if not thousands, of units of affordable housing. And when I've reviewed or have been lucky enough to visit these new developments, I noticed that the units share a couple of common characteristics, which is mainly that they are generally very, very small and oftentimes, but not always, extremely expensive for my district. In each of these negotiations, I have used whatever leverage I have to improve affordability, increase unit sizes. These conversations with HPD are not always easy, but in my experience, developers are generally flexible as long as the project can proceed without delay. And of course, even after we approve a project, it can take months or even years for it to move through an HPD pipeline. According to open data, of the 100% affordable projects financed by HPD from 2020 to 2024, about half were below 50% of area median income, while the other half were 51 to 165% of the area median income. We know not all districts are the same and they have different needs. Districts like mine, where 55% of the population is rent burdened, 31% is severely rent burdened, and where the median household income is $63,000, we just need very low and extremely low income housing. At the same time, other districts with higher incomes, where development costs can be far more expensive, still need to pull their weight and build deeply affordable housing so the rich just don't have these little rich enclaves in the city. My bill, Intro 1443, aligns with HPD's progress to date by ensuring city-funded projects have a minimum number of extremely low and very low income homes, but it will also ensure that in the years to come, if and when the promises of City of Yes and the charter proposals bear fruit, city-funded projects in richer, more exclusionary districts will pull their weight in addressing our city's affordability housing crisis. But in addition to affordability, we also need larger units that families can grow into and where multi-generational households can live comfortably. These needs are sometimes, but not exclusively, geographical and cultural. We have heard from developers directly and on job sites who lament the fact that they are incentivized to build smaller units because HPD provides the same level of subsidy for a studio as they do for a 3-bedroom. So then if I'm a developer, why would I even try to build 3 or 4 bedrooms? Yesterday's daily shelter census showed there were over 17,000 families with children in the shelter, comprising 26,000 adults and 30,000 children, and we need to build for them, in addition to the single adults on the street or in overcrowded homes. We know HPD is doing the best they can. We know you all are doing incredible work, but we just need to do better. We have to build for the people who are staying, who are here, and to keep people here at rates that they can afford. I want my district, who has more, 3 teenagers, they can't live in a 2-bedroom, who have a sick aunt or a family member who needs to live with them, to be able to have a chance at affordable units. And right now, most of what is in stock is not available to them. I was lucky enough to have 5 4-bedroom units from a project, the Grant Ave project that you all worked on. That was great. I mean, it was only 5 4-bedrooms, but that means in a neighborhood like City Line, where you have multi-generational families, we were really able to give something to the community to get them out of the old housing stock, the old railroads that just don't serve us. So I really am looking forward to this conversation, and hopefully we can reach a good deal. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Nurse. We'd like to recognize that we've also been joined virtually by Minority Whip Sylvina Brooke Powers. And now I'd like to invite Kim Dargar, Lucy Joffe, and Danielle Moran appearing on behalf of HPD to witness to the witness table, and I will call on the Community Council to administer their oath. But I also would like to recognize we've been joined by Councilmember Hudson.
Good morning. Daniel, is Daniel here? Just in case you have to come up, why don't you come up for now and I'll take the oath so that you can jump in. Could you please raise your right hand? Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth in your testimony today and in response to council member questions?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Salamanca and members of the New York City Council Committee on Land Use. My name is Lucy Joffe, and I am the Deputy Commissioner of Policy and Strategy at HPD, and I am joined by my colleagues Kim Darga, Deputy Commissioner for Development, and Dan Moran, Assistant Commissioner for New Construction Finance. Thank you for the opportunity to testify here today. In 2020, and then again in 2025, HPD led the creation of Where We Live NYC, the city's comprehensive fair housing plan. The report unequivocally embraces the proposition that where we live matters. Since then, HPD has moved towards a more holistic approach to our development work, focusing not just on the number of units we can build and preserve, but on the many important aspects of home. We are setting policy and tracking our progress based on the premise that we should be building homes and structuring programs that meet New Yorkers' diverse needs. Given that we live in an environment of finite resources, this focus sometimes means that we have to make difficult trade-offs about how best to use those resources. While we collectively want to help as many New Yorkers as possible and to tailor our programming to best meet their needs, there are times when we have to make difficult policy decisions between those two. On many of these issues, that can be a difficult trade-off, and multiple approaches can be reasonable. We welcome public debate and believe that we can and should be held accountable to the City Council and the public for those decisions and how we spend public dollars. In 2023, the City and the Council negotiated Local Law 167, which is also known as the Speaker's Fair Housing Framework. The Fair Housing Framework tasks the City with conducting analyses, establishing targets, and reporting annually on strategies to guide production and promote fair housing. All parties worked hard on this legislation because we appreciated the significance. HPD is fully committed to implementing that framework, and we are well into our work on the 2026 report. However, legislating unit sizes, unit mix requirements, or affordability requirements would undermine that work by substituting fixed mandates for the nuanced, data-informed planning the Fair Housing Framework requires. We appreciate the Council's commitment to expanding access to safe, stable, and affordable housing for New Yorkers. HPD shares the goals that motivate the legislation under consideration, including the need to advance meaningful affordability, expand housing choice, and create homes for a range of household sizes. At the same time, we must express our deep concerns that the bills before the committee, intros 1433, 1437, and 1443, deviate from that approach we established as part of the Fair Housing Framework. They are not based on the in-depth analysis we are conducting and would impose rigid statutory requirements that will be especially harmful in a moment like this, when our resources are strained and federal funding for housing remains uncertain. Our testimony today reflects a commitment to data-driven policy and a recognition of the urgency of the housing crisis, while also highlighting the critical need for flexibility, financial viability, and responsiveness to changing housing conditions. Affordable housing needs to evolve alongside the city and its residents. Site conditions vary dramatically, economic conditions shift, construction costs fluctuate, federal programs, resources, and rental assistance levels can be inconsistent, and demographic and residential patterns and preferences can change. To effectively deliver housing in this dynamic environment, HPD must have the ability to tailor effective solutions at a project, program, and portfolio level. The proposed bills would significantly increase per unit costs, reduce the total number of homes HPD can finance, and make it harder to achieve overall housing goals and a balanced pipeline while being able to adapt to site and neighborhood-specific needs. The cumulative effect of the Council's recent legislative requirements on wages, homeownership, and now affordability levels and unit mix creates competing and often incompatible mandates. HPD cannot meet all of these demands simultaneously without a substantial infusion of new resources or reducing the pace and number of homes we finance. Getting the targets wrong and over or underproducing for our city's actual needs, and worse, being locked into a rigid target that must be legislatively changed, is especially detrimental to our collective goals when the costs are so high. On Intro 1433, HPD has done extensive analysis and believes that our current target for 2- and 3-bedroom production exceeds the best indicators of demand. While we know there are many households of all sizes in need of affordable housing, according to relevant data from the New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey, there are many more existing homes with 2 or more bedrooms than there are households with more than 2 people, especially among lower-income renter households. Similarly, 81% of profiles in Housing Connect, one of the most direct expressions of demand for affordable housing, are for 1- and 2-person households. The city is committed to assessing large units on a neighborhood level as part of City of Yes for families to help ensure that all neighborhoods are accessible to larger households. Creating a rigid target that likely overshoots demand in the way this bill contemplates, however, risks missing the mark and being incredibly expensive for the city. Intro 1437 would significantly reduce our overall production of housing for older adults without a clear data-driven justification for changing the current approach to unit size distribution in the way this legislation would require. On Intro 1443, HPD is deeply committed to prioritizing very and extremely low-income homes. In fact, HPD often exceeds the targets set in this bill. 56% of all subsidized homes in fiscal year 2025 were ELI and VLI. However, our ability to provide deeply affordable housing is largely dependent on the availability of federal resources, including rental assistance. The flexibility to adjust on a project and portfolio level is important for maximizing our resources and being responsive to New Yorkers, stakeholders, and the Council's input. We, as a housing and land use community, collectively share the goals of ensuring that through our housing policy, we are meeting the needs of families, broadly defined, that we are ensuring that older New Yorkers can age here safely and stably, and that we are focusing on those most in need, including very and extremely low-income New Yorkers. These bills, however, take a very different approach to the one we have collectively negotiated as part of the Fair Housing Framework. A one-size-fits-all approach is not the solution to our dire need for affordable housing, as these bills propose. As New York City's housing development agency, we must use every tool available to us and root our development strategies in directives that allow us to create the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people. We hope to work with the Council to meet the spirit of this legislation in a way that's grounded in careful analysis, responsive targets, public accountability, and effective guardrails. Thank you.
Thank you for that testimony. So we're going to begin with our first line of questions, and I'm going to start with some of my questions regarding Intro 1443. So OMB's impact statement finds that this proposed bill on AMI levels would not have any impact on HPD's capital expense or zero total impact. So we actually don't understand why HPD is taking this position that this bill will will have a negative impact on the production.
Yes, thank you for that question. I think this is one of the bills that we're talking about today that is hardest to quantify in terms of the impact. Today, approximately half of the ELI VLI units that we finance are assisted in some way through federal resources. We know that the federal, and let me just clarify a point there, that approximately third of the units receive some form of rental assistance. And so one of our biggest concerns is being able to continue to produce at that level of ELI and VLI housing, which we are absolutely committed to, given the federal resource uncertainty. Um, Rental assistance in particular, as I mentioned, is a really important part of our ability to advance that work. Our senior housing, age-restricted developments particularly, are 100% covered by rental assistance. We know that's important given the population that we're trying to serve. We have, on the Section 8 front, we've talked about that at some of the other hearings we've had over the last 6 to 9 months. There's real uncertainty in terms of our availability to continue to provide Section 8 at the level that we have in recent years. And the cost that we're seeing in the Section 8 front has grown. We, as of late last week, our federal administration announced a new notice of funding availability for the Continuum of Care program that potentially will change the availability of that resource for rental assistance for supportive housing in New York City. So we are absolutely committing to this. I think the other one thing I would note is that, the legislation as drafted has a specific percentage of extremely low income units as well as very low income units. And while in aggregate between the two, we are producing over 50% through our subsidized housing programs, the ratio year to year can vary. We think in order to operationalize legislation like this, we would actually have to reduce the flexibility that we offer today in our programs and be more prescriptive about what every project is required to do. And like I said, I think in particular, I think meeting that ELI target without the federal rental assistance programs is of pretty significant concern. So I think, again, we're really committed to this. We certainly want to continue to do this work. We're going to try to be as creative we can at how we do it. But I think what we're really seeking is flexibility to be able to continue to monitor the housing needs in New York City and adapt how we and have flexibility about how we implement as the resource environment potentially changes.
All right. Open data shows that HPD has increased the number of ELI units to cover 34% of new construction units during the most recent 5-year period. What types of projects drove this increase? And has there been an increase in supportive and other voucher-based units that count as ELI? Or is this due to an increase of deeply affordable non-voucher units at a 30% AMI?
Yeah, so it's a combination of, I think, some of the strategies that you just mentioned. One of our biggest housing priorities today and the work that we do through our subsidized program, so where we're deploying discretionary assistance, capital funds, tax exemptions, is to help households that are in shelter today exit shelter. And so we are, and you can see this in the data, we have been really making sure that we're creating as many units as possible for homeless households exiting shelter as well as supportive housing. The vast majority of those units are made possible because of rental assistance. So we do that work in basically every new construction project that we finance. And in addition to that, we have very clear targets in our new construction programs that are not dedicated to serving special populations, older adults, or supportive housing, where we have explicit targets for creating at least 50% extremely low income and very low income housing. Like I said, our ability to do this has really been dependent on the availability of rental assistance over time. And the cost of continuing to do that work, in terms of the cost of local commitment of resources, would grow pretty dramatically if the federal rental assistance were not available to the same degree.
Commissioner, I have a quick question. The AMI structure that's set up, I know that the AMI structure is HUD. The federal government sets the AMI structure, but we understand that their AMI structure is not adequate with the actual income levels of New Yorkers. What is the city of New York doing to combat this, to ensure that AMIs that are being negotiated and approved are actually reflective of communities?
That's a great question. So, you, as you stated, we can't necessarily control the formula. We're happy to talk about that formula if it's useful. But what we do is when we're financing housing, we actually look at the housing costs within that market, and we require that everything we finance the affordable units are discounted to the local market. So we know even within that community, those units would be available compared to other alternative housing options. So in a market where, let's say, the rents in the community are around 80% AMI, we require all of our units to be financed at an affordability level below that. In addition, you may be familiar with the formula that the housing cost for an individual household is approximately or less than a third of that household's income. So when a household is leasing up a unit, it is controlling for the amount of their income that they're investing in housing on an ongoing basis.
I just feel that affordable housing units, at least in the borough of the Bronx, are the same. It's the same price as a market rate unit. There's no difference in affordability. And I know my colleagues Perina and Dinowitz and Sandy Nurse, we're constantly getting messages from folks saying, this is not really affordable, what we're approving here. And so we'll continue to have that conversation.
Chair, if I may, one
Yes.
other thing that we're doing, absolutely, we've had these conversations and hearings, and this is something that we take incredibly seriously. One of the other things that we do is we use rental assistance strategically. So when we have a unit that might be set at a higher AMI level, one of the ways to ensure that we actually can help lower income people move into those units is they're moving in with rental assistance. So sometimes that's another strategy that we use to try to ensure that we are reaching deeper levels of affordability than sometimes is even reflected in our production numbers.
Question: Are these formulas, do they take into consideration inflation, price of eggs, bread, your cost of living going up, and yet the rent seems so high? Is HPD taking into consideration inflation when they're coming up with these formulas?
So we don't set as you acknowledged. So the first answer is yes, we think about this a lot, and we have a number of ways that we try to measure this, account for this. HUD sets what we sometimes call HUD income limits, and affect, everyone collectively we call area median income. It is a formula that they base on a combination of income and other factors in high-cost cities like ours on rents. It does not account for anything beyond that. But as we think about how New Yorkers are spending their money and the impact of rent burden, that's absolutely something that we think about and we talk about, and you've probably heard us testify about in terms of using HVS data to consider.
All right. I'm going to hand this over to Councilmember Nurse since I've been focusing on her bill. Councilmember, you have any questions? No? All right. Okay. So my next round of questions has to do with Intro 1433. The bedroom mix. We can all agree that families are leaving the city and that there is a real problem. They are leaving for a number of reasons. One, the lack of affordable apartments with 2 and 3 bedroom units is one of them. OMB's impact statement says that increasing the number of 2 and 3 bedroom units apartments to the levels recommended in the bill would decrease the number of units per project between 5 and 6%. But have you analyzed the impact on the city if families cannot stay here due to a lack of affordable housing, or for an example, tax losses or labor shortages?
Thank you for that question. This is also something that we look at very closely and take very seriously. The city did, for example, with City of Yes for Families, really try to focus on how we think about better meeting the needs for New Yorkers with larger households across all of their needs, including housing. What we did see in the 2023 New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey, which you may have heard us talk about, is we are seeing low-income households having to leave New York City. We're seeing that across household size. We hear about it across household size. So absolutely, households with children and larger families, they are having to leave and struggling to find affordable housing. We're also seeing that among small households and that strain. So what we're attempting to do is to try to think about, as we look at how the impacts of our housing production, what size homes are already available in the market, what size are we producing, and how do we best match the population as it exists and who is applying and expressing an interest for affordable housing. We know that larger households are struggling to find affordable housing. We know that's part of a broader problem here in New York City, where households of all sizes are expressing this concern. And what we're doing is talking about that breakdown or that shift of how many large units HPD should be producing in each project and on a citywide level to try to meet the need.
I know that this bill does not address this, but I'm hearing that there's a future bill that will, in the future, will come up. One of the biggest concerns that I have in my district, given the fact of the amount of production that I've done in my district, is one, the units, whether they're studios, 1 or 2 bedroom units, and the unit sizes. And the unit size is a major issue. And when I speak to the developers about the unit sizes, they say, well, this is the formula that HPD has given us. And quite frankly, they try not to rock the boat in terms of that. How did you come up with the formula in terms of the sizes of units, of bedrooms and living rooms, the square footage?
Thank you. That's another one of those moments where what we're trying to do with our housing policy is balance the needs for serving as many New Yorkers as possible, as well as with meeting their needs for on an individual building level. I'll turn it over to.
But hold on, Commissioner. Has anyone from HPD gone to visit these units after they've been built?
Yes, we have.
And honestly, I have an 11-year-old son. I'm pretty sure you have family. If you have a bedroom for your child, you have a bed, normally a nightstand, a TV. These new units that are being built, you cannot add all 3 things in these units. I don't know. So that's why I asked, does HPD actually go and visit after these units have been built and say, this is appropriate for New Yorkers?
Yeah, so just taking a step back, any of the housing that we finance has to comply with New York City building codes. In addition to that, HPD has additional design guidelines that we've established for any of the affordable housing projects that we finance. The square footage, I think you're talking about the square footage of units and kind of configuration of those units. That is overall, the unit sizes that we require are larger than is required by the New York City Building Code. So we have tried to address that. I do think this is a balancing act between the amount of housing we can finance and the size of any given units. So if we increase the square footage even larger than what exists today in the design guidelines, we would produce less affordable housing on each individual site. And we know what's challenging around this is that we know that there are so many people in shelter and that lack just housing they can afford in general today. So it is one of these things that where they're really tricky trade-offs.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, but it's just visiting these units after they've been built. I just find that it's hurtful, and I find myself apologizing to my constituents for approving a project in that magnitude and with the unit size is so small, and quite frankly, the New York City building codes, what they said is strict minimums. So therefore, and I remember during the De Blasio administration, I believe you were there. There was a change in terms of HPD decided to change the square footage sizes to maximize the amount of units. Am I correct?
I don't recall that
I
conversation.
remember that. I remember that conversation because then I started questioning newer units that were built compared to older units that were built and how small the bedrooms were. With that, I'm just going to hand it over to Councilmember Dinowitz for questions.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Just to make sure we're all, I've heard you use the phrase data a lot. I want to make sure HPD is aware that families with small children are leaving New York City at a higher rate than any other demographic group. Is HPD aware of this fact?
So we look at all available data sources. So certainly we'd be happy to look at what sources that you're looking at for this. We've testified very clearly that when we talk, I'm often citing the New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey, Housing Connect, et cetera.
Demographic data, right? Despite what people may or may not be applying for, they're leaving the city. And you're aware that we're losing students. Our public schools are losing students. Right? These are well-documented, published data points, right? And HPD is aware that the majority of people living in shelter are families with children. Just confirming you're aware of these facts that are published by the city.
Councilmember, we would be happy to look through all of the available data that you're looking at. I think
I'm looking at New York. So I'm sorry. I'm looking at New York City data that our government publishes. So your administration publishes this data. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page that HPD is not using different data than DSS or the mayor, right?
We are collectively looking at the data sources that you're talking about, yes.
So then that means HPD is aware that there is a crisis among families with children in terms of housing in New York City. I think one of the problems we face is that there's a fundamental mismatch between your goals and our goals. And I'm hearing words like flexibility, but the only metric that I'm hearing about success in meeting your targets is unit production. And you can comb through all of Mayor Adams's press releases. You can look at any of the mayoral candidates. They talk about unit production. Does HPD have any other metrics by which they measure success besides unit production?
Councilmember, in my testimony today, I talked about that difficult balance and the ways in which HPD has started to look at a number of other metrics differently. We published Where We Live Now twice. I think it's been very clear that we are setting metrics well beyond the number of units that we produce. We do think talking about the number of homes that and the trade-offs that we make is an important part of this conversation. We also are looking at our Housing Connect data, which indicates applications by household size. We do not, I don't think we have different goals here, and I don't think either of us have been here to say that the overarching goal is just how many homes we can produce. I think what we're saying to you is that we think that this, just as you're indicating, is a nuanced and important issue with which we should be looking at multiple data sources and coming to a determination about the right set of targets, and that this is a decision that the city should make collectively and informed by nuanced data because it is an expensive decision, and that we've actually set out a framework collectively through the Fair Housing Framework.
Can I just ask about Where We Live NYC, because you testified to that. In which goal is unit size? Goal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? No, bedroom mix in terms of 2, 3 bedrooms?
Well, we have not specifically set that out in Where We Live because we actually, in the state of the city in the City of Yes for Families, announced that we would be looking at this on a neighborhood level, which we've started to do. It's also required of us as part of the...
But this is sort of the mismatch between, I think, what's being said and the actual experiences. that we are feeling in our community. And I'm pleased every time I hear about data informed and flexibility, but I mean the data that is produced by New York City is pretty clear in that families are leaving, families are in shelter more so than any other demographic group. Like that is the data that our city, the administration, is sharing. That's public data. So I'm pleased to hear about data informed plan. It should be data informed, and it should use the data, which tells us everything we know from our experiences. But also, when I hear data informed and I hear about flexibility, what's confusing to me is that you then have term sheets which incentivize the production of studios and one bedrooms, where it says the maximum studios is 15%, minimum 2 bedrooms or more is 30%. And those are the guidelines. And invariably, the production in an individual building is going to have the bare minimum 2-bedroom units and maximum studios and 1-bedroom apartments. And I can cite example after example in my district alone, but everyone up here will tell you the same thing. And so it's unclear to me how you are being flexible when it seems to me very rigid to maximize the number of units, that the metric that's being used is the number of units, that you have term sheets that really lay out a very rigid structure to incentivize those small units.
So, thank you, Councilmember. What I want to note is that as of the 2023 New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey, 66% of renter households have 1 or 2 people. 81% of the applications that we are getting for affordable housing through Housing Connect are from 1 or 2 person households. So you are right that we do use our term sheets to set guidelines, and that they are based on the data that we are producing, the data that we're seeing. So we would expect to see that 30%, 70% breakdown that you've talked about, because we actually, based on the data that I just shared, are actually overproducing on a citywide level the number of 2 and 3 bedroom homes. What we're saying to you all is that doesn't need to be fixed, right? We don't think it needs to be fixed in perpetuity. It doesn't need to be fixed through legislation. What it should be is that we work collectively to analyze all of the available data that we've talked about, to set targets, and for you all to hold us accountable to that as part of a process, because I agree with you. It is incredibly important that we meet the actual needs on the ground. And some of those are, sometimes that's citywide needs. There's absolutely
So
variation.
let me just say, it's just my district because I know the buildings in my district. How many buildings in District 11 that have been HPD financed have built anything more than 30% 2-bedroom apartments in the past 5 years?
I don't think we have that list here today. We can certainly follow up with you, but I do want to take a step back. You mentioned a moment ago that applicants only finance the minimum, right? So that's actually not what we're seeing in the data. We establish a minimum number of 2 and 3 bedrooms, and then applicants can, on a property-by-property basis, determine if they believe they can exceed that and if it makes sense based on the population that they're serving.
But why would they? If us as a government is saying we're going to give you the most money for putting in as many studios and 1-bedroom apartments as possible, and the metric that HPD, that elected officials use, is number of units, and look at any press release from HPD or from the mayor, and that's what they'll tout is number of units, not people housed. Like, why would a developer do anything other than get the most money? And why should we incentivize that? Like, why aren't we incentivizing them to build to actually meet the needs of local communities?
So what I was trying to say is we are seeing people do it, right? So I'm just looking at the FY25 production data. 48% of what we financed were 2+ bedroom homes. In new construction alone, it was 35%, 2 to 3 bedrooms or bigger. So we actually are seeing applicants on a project
I'm sorry,
by
can you repeat that
project.
data? I'm sorry, can you repeat it one more time?
In FY25, for all subsidized housing production, 48% of what we financed were 2+ bedrooms. And for new construction alone, it was 35% were 2 bedrooms or larger. So we actually are seeing applicants on a project-by-project basis going beyond the minimums where they can do so and where they believe it would be beneficial for the project and the community.
Okay, there's different data on HPD open data from the years 2020 to 2024. There's different data. So I don't know if the housing production drastically split and changed, but I believe the 2-bedroom production was 24.1% of new construction from 2020 to 2024.
I think what's difficult about open data is that this legislation and this conversation is about subsidized housing.
Yes.
That's where HPD can actually establish guidelines that shape the outcomes. The open data actually includes all of the as-of-right production, so everything that's being financed through 421A, for example. And so when people see affordability or they see unit size information, the rest of it includes the full universe. Where we can make a choice, which is in the discretionary kind of world, right, where we are providing discretionary financial assistance, people are producing more family-size units. And I just want to take a step back. This is what my colleague was saying a few minutes ago. This is a really tricky balance. We understand that there are many families that struggle for housing. We are not at all questioning that issue, okay? The tricky thing is we also know that within the existing rental housing stock of New York City, there actually are a large number of 2, 3+ bedroom homes. And we know that if we continue to produce, given that the demand is so high for individual households for affordable housing as well, that we are going to create less affordable housing at a moment in time where we know that so many New Yorkers are actually struggling to find housing that they can afford. So that's the tension and the trade-off, and I think the reason why we really, we want to work with council to make sure we get it right? And that means making sure we are reviewing it holistically. It is absolutely possible that in some communities across New York City, there are not enough family options, right? So even in aggregate, maybe there's plenty of 2 and 3, unit plus homes, but there are particular communities where we're not seeing that. And as my colleague has mentioned, we are extremely dedicated to making sure we're not just producing housing, but giving New Yorkers choice and access to be able to live the way they want, where they want in New York City. And so as part of the evaluation that we're doing and committed to earlier this year, we're not just looking at the aggregate data, but we're making sure that we're looking at what it actually looks like within individual communities.
Okay, I will just say I respectfully disagree in that the only metric that we do see is unit count. I will say that interested to talk more offline about the data you're selecting, the selection bias in the data that is there, and even in the beginning that we couldn't even hear that HPD agrees with the city's own data. But I'll end with this and why, and the example I always give when HPD comes to testify and always says the same thing about units flying off the shelf and why a previous commissioner said we don't need more 2 and 3 bedrooms, is it hasn't been the experience in my district and a lot of our districts that HPD and their financing is flexible to the needs of the community. And the one example I always give is in my district where there is a new building, 100% affordable, very happy about that, but it's 70% studios and 1 bedrooms, and it's adjacent to a brand new elementary school. It is across the street from a playground. It is down the block from a family shelter. Like, I can't think of a place where you would want to put more 2 and 3 bedroom apartments than a place that is designed for children. And so the metrics you use to measure success, again, I believe is just unit count, not families housed. It has been the experience that HPD has not been flexible in terms of the unit mix they are providing to communities. We have tried to work in the past, and that's why this legislation is critical to make sure more and more of our families stay in New York and stay in New York in homes, not in shelters. Thank you, Chair, for the extended time.
Thank you, Councilmember Dinowitz.
Thank you, HPD.
One quick question before I hand it off to Councilmember Sanchez. I'm interested in knowing where in the city has HPD financed 3-bedroom units in the last 5 years?
Let me see. Give me a moment to see. I actually may have some of that information, and if not, we can follow up. But if you just give me a moment, I can check. We have seen the most housing for families financed in Council District 12, 9, 42, 17.
I'm sorry, 12? Can you say that again?
Your district.
No, I'm sorry. No, but
and
I'm 12, 9.
Council Districts 12,
Uh-huh.
9, 42, 17, and 8. And we have seen the least financed in council members.
These are what, 3-bedroom units?
These are family size units, 2 plus.
Okay, go ahead.
Plus. We have seen the least financed in council districts 23, 19, 25, 51, and 30.
What about 3-bedroom units and more?
I only have the breakdown for family size, which is 2 plus, so we would have to follow up for additional information.
And the reason I ask is because I know that there are certain communities that get preference on 3 and 4-bedroom units opposed to other communities. Yes, I do. I do advocate for studios, but most importantly, 1 and 2-bedroom units in my communities. I've tried to get as many 3 bedrooms as I can, but I know that there are other communities in the city of New York that are more successful in getting 3 and 4-bedroom units opposed to other communities.
Councilmember, we both in terms of the housing stock, and my colleague referenced this earlier, both in terms of the existing housing stock, there is very significant variation between neighborhoods in terms of where there are more 2 and 3-bedroom homes already. And we also know there is differences based on our production. So, we certainly agree with that. And that's one of the things that we're looking at, and how, because our operating philosophy coming out of where we live, so some of the folks here have heard me talk about this a lot, is that New Yorkers should be able to choose the neighborhood that's best for them. So we need to identify where there are gaps in the housing stock, because if there is somewhere that a larger household would like to move to, and there is not there are not enough homes that match their household size, that is one of the immediate ways that we can remove that fair housing obstacle, and some of which is rooted in lack of access and discrimination and historical patterns of segregation. And so that is one of our top priorities, really identifying where are we finding those gaps and targeting those.
What about 4-bedroom units?
In terms of data?
Yes, in the last 5 years, how many 4-bedroom units have you produced?
We don't have that with us today because because our households skew.
But you do produce 4-bedroom units. I know. I've been a land use chair for 8 years.
Yeah.
Prior to Councilmember Ressler, Councilmember Levin was here, and we approved a bunch of 4-bedroom units. And I was like, Steve, how did you get that? And so I'm trying to figure out how can other communities, other than Steve Levin's community, not Resslers, can get 4-bedroom units as well.
Thank you for that question. Because both the population of the city, those who apply for Housing Connect, skew to such a degree towards small 1 and 2 person households. We did not bring breakouts beyond at 4, 5, 6 today, but we would be happy to talk more about that.
What I'm just trying to get at is we want equity. If there's certain communities that are getting 4-bedroom units, why can't the South Bronx or Borough of the Bronx, why can't we get 4-bedroom units also as well?
Chair, we unequivocally agree.
And we just want fairness and equity. All right, Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you so much, Chair Salamanca. HPD, welcome to your daily installment of hearings in the council this week. Sorry, thank you. We appreciate you. You're very popular.
Same time, same place tomorrow?
Yep. See you tomorrow. So I just want to start off by saying I hear you. I hear the agency not wanting to overly prescribe and constrain HPD's flexibility on production diversity and with respect to unit sizes and income mix. But I just want to also underscore that these bills are they're communicating a frustration that we have as colleagues, but not just as colleagues. It's our communities yelling at us, our community boards, our leaders, that we repeatedly share with you. And I don't think you contradicted this, Deputy Commissioner, when you said that 35% of new construction, only 35% of new construction are two plus bedroom. We're consistently feeling like our concerns fall on deaf ears. And so, I just want to highlight that I understand where my colleagues are coming from with these bills. And so my first question, and I do want to make sure I get to Chair Hudson, Councilmember Hudson's questions on her bill, because she had to run. But my first question is, in the absence of this legislation, what guarantees do we have as council members, and do communities have, that will finally, the agency will be finally listening to what our communities are saying that we want to see in the city subsidized housing stock, right? Because I, for one, and you've heard me say this probably a million times, is that if I get another Article 11 support request for a building that is 25 studios and 2 one bedrooms, like, I'm gonna lose my lid, right? I'm just gonna lose it, because that's just not reflective of what we want to see. And so that's my first question on mechanisms for transparency.
Thank you for that question. We absolutely do recognize the frustration, why it's coming. We want to be responsive to you all, to New Yorkers, and we're trying to make take significant strides to meet that. And we are all in on the fair housing framework. And we testified very clearly today, this is not a difference in priorities or goals. What this is a discussion, we think, about how best to achieve them and how to set us up in a way that allows us to balance what are sometimes competing needs. Because there are also times where, very understandably, members of the council are upset that projects are stuck in the pipeline for too long, right? We want to be responsive to all of these things and put out there, these are the things that we're weighing, right? And make these decisions collectively in a way that holds all of these competing needs at the same time. We do think, and I can say we are already hard at work on the fair housing framework. We embrace the transparency of it. We have started adding public metrics from where we live to show that we are approaching equity and thinking about which communities we're building in, because we do want that, and we welcome that accountability.
I'm sorry, I'm not the chair this time, so I can't just go on forever.
I'm sorry.
But I will tomorrow, just while I have you tomorrow. I appreciate that, and definitely, want to see those concrete examples, right? If you come to me with that kind of request, in what's the context of the other units in my district in the Bronx, the other buildings that have been produced, and what have been their mixes, and what are you considering in the future? Just on behalf of Councilmember Hudson, I want to ask these two questions together. How, with respect to her bill, how does HPD determine bedroom mix in senior housing buildings receiving city financial assistance? How does HPD balance its goal to finance as much housing as possible and the needs of the people it is trying to house? And lastly, does HPD solicit feedback from senior citizens, both current and potential residents of senior housing buildings receiving city financial assistance, about whether the number of bedrooms in their units meet their needs?
Thank you for that question. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague in a moment. But one of the things I do want to note, there has been a real change in how we have approached talking about the needs of older adults and how we address their housing needs over just the last couple of years. And a lot of that comes from the very data we're talking about today, what we see in the New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey, and where we live. And for too long, we treated older adults like a monolith, right? And that there was one way to solve their housing needs. We all know that that can't possibly be true in a city as diverse as ours. And so when we think about this from a policy perspective and work together across policy and development, and when we talk to you all, we have started talking about the diverse range of programs that we need to meet older adults and their needs. And that has been a real change and a real focus. So we've rolled out a number of different pilots and programs that attempt to take account for that real wide range. And so with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague to talk about our production.
Yeah, so the Senior Affordable Rental Apartments program is unique for HPD in that We don't dictate the number of Studio One bedrooms the same way as we do in some of the other new construction programs. We have found that the providers that we work with are very dedicated to working with older adults, and that they seek to design the building to make sure that it works for the population they're trying to serve. We actually, this is one space where we do have larger square footage requirements for studios, specifically. We also have more amenity space within the building, specifically designed to make sure that older adults are able to meet with other residents of the property, as well as people that may be visiting. We also, I just want to take a step back in that I think our work to support older adults is pretty diverse. We talk a lot about age-restricted housing, but we've actually, over the last couple of years, tried to take a much more expansive approach to thinking about how we are supporting households as they age. And that is everything from how we do our preservation work, making sure that households have opportunities when we are working with a property to have modifications to kitchens and bathrooms so that they can age more safely in their home today and not move. To making sure that in new construction, we have adaptive design standards in everything that we finance. So whether it's a unit that is produced through our extremely low income extremely low and low income program, or through our supportive housing program, or through our senior housing program, the apartments can be adapted in order to meet the needs of households, especially if they have mobility concerns. We also older adults have access uniquely, not just to age-restricted housing, but they also have access to all of the housing that we finance. So they have some additional choices that they can make when they're applying to the lottery through HPD. Do they want to be in a building with lots of different people of different ages, or would prefer to be in age-restricted housing? And so we've really tried to take a really kind of expansive approach. We've also started to think about how we are working with households that may have stairs within their property today. So even if their unit is accessible, they're having a hard time, maybe their entry stairs or something like that, and giving them priority to our age-restricted housing if they are applying through Housing Connect. So we're really trying to think expansively about how we work with older adults.
And to your question, that last point is directly came out of our findings from the New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey about accessibility challenges in our current housing stock for older adults. And a lot of this comes from research, both local and nationally, about older adults' needs, varied preferences about living intergenerationally or not. And so we really are trying to be responsive as maximally as we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council Member. A quick question before I get to Council Member Sandy Nurse. The SARA program, that program still exists, correct?
Yes, it does.
I know that the community preference changed. There was a lawsuit, and now I think, are we still at, what's the percentage that there is for community preference for communities? Where are we? It was 50, now it went down to, I think it was going to go to 30 and then 15, correct? Am I saying that correctly?
This is not what I came prepared to talk about.
I'm just curious.
I know. I'm digging it out of the back of my brain. I think it's 20% down to 15, and I think we're still at 20%.
We're at 20%. And do we know when that it's going to go down to 15, the deadline?
We do. I think it's 2029.
2029? All right.
We will get back to you to double confirm.
And the SARA program, was that affected as well, the community preference for the SARA program?
All of our new construction programs were impacted by the litigation.
By that
All of our
lawsuit?
subsidized programs.
So the SARA program, it's going to go down to 15% but the SARA program was different. The community set aside, I believe, was borough-wide, correct?
I don't know.
It was
I think
not by
we'll have to
community board.
We'll have to double check. There may be.
I think that's the intersection of rent.
Yeah, I think
HUD
it's because
rental
the rental
assistance,
assistance.
HUD has different rules on this. So where there was rental assistance in the project, we had to comply with HUD's rules.
Okay, I'm sorry. Councilmember Nurse?
And sorry to clarify, some of the senior housing projects that we financed were collaborations with Nycc. So there were also some modifications based on having a preference for Nycc households.
I just had a couple clarifying questions from some of the answers you've given. You had mentioned you were talking about overproducing 2 and 3 bedrooms. Can you say how much you are overproducing by?
Thank you for that question. And I do want to note that our goal here today is not to bring
No, I know
competing
your-
data,
I know
right?
your
What we
goal.
want
I
to do is
just
have a holistic.
And how
yeah.
you're seeing, what is the percentage by which you are overproducing 2 bedrooms and
Yep.
overproducing 3 bedrooms? And how is that being revealed to you? Is that through vacant 2 and 3 bedrooms that you're saying you're not able to fill? Like, elaborate for me.
Yes, thank you. So assessing demand is hard, right? Because one of the things you want to look at is who exists in the city, who's living in the city, and what are their apparent needs based on demographic data, both household composition and then income, right? And we see as we sort of make each of those cuts in the data, lowering to or adjusting for renter households, adjusting by income, we see that household sizes get smaller. Just because those are the folks who are living here doesn't mean they have a interest in leaving their current housing for whatever reason that we can't actually necessarily assess just from looking at survey data. So then we also look at Housing Connect data, where specifically we try to look at a number of indicators, but in particular at profiles, right? Who is creating a profile as one of the best expressions of interest in affordable housing? Because then it's less about, oh, I can see myself living in this particular new building, but I am interested in affordable housing. I would like to move. So we try to look at both sides of that, right? And what already exists in our housing market. And what we see is that we actually have 52%, and I think based on your language, you said vacant. So 50%, 52% of our occupied rental units have 2 bedrooms or more.
Those are city subsidized units.
No,
Okay, I'm talking about
for our production.
what it's related to Councilmember Dinowitz's bill. I'm just trying to understand both like what's your formula. So if you, I understand what you're saying today, but I think it would be helpful to have that broken down. Like, how are you determining that or better yet, let me put it this way. Is your testimony or is your belief that if you build more 2 and 3 bedrooms, more 3 bedrooms, that you would not be able to fill them from city subsidized units?
There are households of every size, every situation who are in need of affordable housing. So we are not minimizing that to any extent. What we are trying to do is look at the relative size of each of the populations expressing interest and then say, okay, so what is the right mix between these different sizes?
Have you done any surveying to get at why people might not be interested in what is being city subsidized? So for people who are, let me think about how to put this. I'll just say my hunch is that people who are living in railroads and old housing stock have bigger families and they are paying really low rent because they're in old buildings and they're looking at what is city subsidized and they're looking at what's on Housing Connect. And I think they're saying, my rent would go up and I can't bring my whole family with me. And so I would like to understand why producing more 3 bedrooms would be overproducing very specifically.
Well, so the first thing I want to say is this is exactly the kind of conversation that we want to have. We want to look at sort of that nuance. What are the multiple levers we need to be thinking about, right, to make sure that we are being responsive to the needs of everyone and by household size. We do look at the rates at which folks are applying. we don't have survey. I don't have survey data. I don't know of any survey data that specifically looks at asking people about that level of preference, right? What we are looking at is the number of folks citywide and the number who are expressing that interest and trying to find the intersection of it. We would be happy to continue to have this conversation. We want to be responsive, right, to the needs of New Yorkers. And what we're here talking about is the best way to get to that point. And we feel very committed to doing this through the Speaker's Fair Housing Framework, looking really holistically at demographic changes, at the obstacles that people are experiencing towards housing stability, which is a whole section of the report. And to the extent that we think there are some changes or updates that we could make to the framework to make sure that we're being responsive to the council, we welcome that.
I think HPD needs more tools or more surveying to understand, to better contextualize that demand, and rather than simply looking through the household profiles on Household Connect or Housing Connect. And lastly, Chair, just my last question. In my experience, when I ask developers for bigger units, 3 bedrooms, or just like a couple 4 bedrooms, they always come back and say that you all say no, that you don't want to do it and you won't do it, or that you're going to give them hell to do it. So have you all told developers we will not finance? When they come and ask, have you told developers you will not approve or move forward more 4 bedrooms, more 3 bedrooms?
You can always check with us directly if.
No, I'm talking to you directly now.
No, well, but I'm just saying on an individual project, if you're hearing that, you can always come to us directly, and we're happy to have that conversation. We are producing more than the minimum in our
I'm
term
just asking
sheets.
for a direct answer. Have you ever told a developer who is saying, I'm willing to go beyond what the minimum is here for larger family units and larger sizes within the units? Have you
We are
told them
willing
no?
to be flexible if an applicant can conform with our term sheet with regard to the maximum investment the city will make. So there are lots of different factors within a budget that drive the cost. That is one of them. An applicant certainly could look at the overall budget and figure out if they can do more within the amount of subsidy that the city is willing to invest.
So your testimony is that you tell people they're flexible, but you are not willing to say whether you have not, yes or no, that you have told someone no.
I'm not negotiating every single transaction, so I can't actually answer that question. What I can tell you is that we are willing to be flexible if an applicant finance the project under the term sheets. The term sheet is specifically designed to say minimum in order to allow that flexibility for applicants to say, I'd like to do more here. I think I can make that work from a design or financing perspective.
Okay, I'll let it go, but because of the interest of time, the chair's giving me the look. I'll just end with a comment that I really think, you got some new tools. You got City of Yes, you've got a bunch of stuff, you got the charter proposals. There's a lot of free reign here for people to build. And I think given that, it is time for HPD to now look at the quality and the experience of living in these units, the experience of a family living in a 2-bedroom. I would argue it is a horrible experience over time. Families grow, people get bigger, people's bodies are bigger, and they need to be able to have the experience of living in a unit that isn't stuffing their life in there, allows them to have toys, allows them to have their family members come over, allows them to put a Christmas tree in there, not a Charlie Brown one. If it's our dollars, our public dollars going to build housing because we want to keep people in New York, we should be building for an experience of living that's worth staying and is worthy of the dollars that we are putting forward. So I think it's time for HPD to just build a broader framework that focuses on that versus just quantity.
And
thank you, Chair.
I don't know if I can, it wasn't necessarily a question, but if I can respond. Thank you. Yes, we are looking at all of those things. I think we are using the word flexibility in a way that might be confusing. We have set our current targets purposefully based on the data that we're looking at. We are also more than welcome to come, or more than happy to come to the table with all of you to say maybe there's other data that we should be considering when we set those targets, right? So when we talk though about wanting to ensure that there's flexibility, what we want to make sure of is that collectively, if we set a target and we disagree, or we all realize like that target's not working for whatever reason it may be, maybe because we got it wrong, or because things change, right? What we think is there should be something in how we plan for this so that we can actually go back and fix it, given that there are costs associated with it. There are so many New Yorkers so desperately need an affordable housing that we want to make sure we get it right.
It costs money to do things. It costs money to build schools.
Yeah.
It costs money to put parks. Like, it costs money to do things well. No one's in disagreement there. We're just saying that the trade-offs that you're talking about, because you all are using the terminology trade-off, I'm saying that the trade-off is worth it to spend more to do better. And I think we can all agree on that here. And I think the chair's remarks about going into those units, I think is shared by every single member of this body. So, I mean, I have a massive project that we're negotiating right now. It's good to see that you're flexible. I am going to be asking for bigger units, so I'm hoping that the flexibility moves in the direction of the community, and not towards like some rigid sheet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I want to agree with your statements. And I hope that while you're negotiating, you ask for bigger square footages in these bedrooms. And you're right. I have heard from developers that their fear to go back on HPD and say, hey, they want more 2 and 3 bedroom units because they're scared. They're scared. You're the decision maker. They're scared that in their next project, you're going to keep them in the pipeline if they push back. And that's an honest assessment. I've been around for some time, and that is exactly what I'm told. See, some of these developers, they're scared to speak up because they know that ultimately after that project is approved in the council, HPD has the final say so as to what gets approved and what does not get approved. And that is an honest assessment. You can disagree.
No, that's
but
fine.
I'm
We
telling
haven't
you
had the
what the
experience of
reality
being in
is
front of
here
the
in the city of New
council
York when
where
we're
the
talking about.
developer was the one who we were trying to protect. We well taken. We appreciate it. You just to the extent you see us smile, that's not normally the way we talk about it and think about it, but we appreciate that. Thank you.
Just finally, just some questions that we want to get on the record, some answers. What percentage of senior housing units receiving city financial assistance built each year are studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms? Because unfortunately, that data is not available on the open data.
Okay, if you just give me one moment, I can tell you that. I think it's averaged about 30%, 1+ bedrooms. We actually recently implemented a kind of or created an option within the senior housing term sheet specifically to allow for 2 bedrooms for intergenerational households. We do know that a percentage of older adults, about 14% citywide, are in intergenerational households. So I can give you the exact number, but it's approximately 30%, 1 bedroom plus.
All right. Is it possible you can provide that information to land use?
Absolutely.
1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms. And then finally, I just want to ask questions about your vouchers, how vouchers are given. And it's been my experience in my communities, even with some of my staffers. I have a staffer that has three kids that are in college, city college, and they're only giving her a voucher for a 2 bedroom unit. How does but yes, she has three children, 3 grown children that live with her. And herself, how does the voucher, what's the policy in terms of giving vouchers for families with bigger families?
So this is a little bit outside my expansive expertise, but there are federal regulations when it comes to household size and the size unit that would be subsidized. So a household could choose to be in a bigger unit, but then they would have to make up the difference within their own household income between what the federal subsidy would cover and what the household would be responsible for in terms of rent.
And that's assuming it's a federal form of rental assistance
Right.
versus local, which is more outside our expertise.
All right. Well, we would like to thank you for your testimony today. I don't think we have any more questions from the council here, and just give us a 2-minute recess while we bring in the next panel. Thank you,
Thank you
commissioners.
very
Thank you.
much.
All right. So the next panel we'll be calling up will be Eustacia Smith, Chris Walters, and Howard Slacken. All right. So we're gonna start with Chris Walters first, then Howard Slacken, and then Eustacia Smith.
Great. Am I good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you, Chair Salamanca and committee members for the opportunity to testify. My name is Chris Walters. I'm the Senior Land Use Policy Associate at the Association for Neighborhood and Housing Development, ANHD. We're a membership organization of NYC neighborhood-based housing and economic development groups with a mission to build community power to win affordable housing and thriving, equitable neighborhoods for all New Yorkers. ANHD supports the intention of these bills to help set a floor for AMI levels and unit sizes, including for senior housing, for city projects that all future administrations must follow. We've long advocated for city finance housing that seeks to achieve the deepest affordability possible, as we know that this is where the need truly lies. When it comes to AMI levels, close to 50% of renter households in the city earn 50% of AMI or less. 78% of rent-burdened households earn 50% of AMI or below. There's a critical need for housing these households can afford. At the same time, we want to acknowledge HPD's work in creating deeply affordable housing and the intentional work they have done to focus more of their resources there. When you look at the numbers, they are close to reaching the AMI levels that are laid out in Intro 1443, and we want to ensure that this trend is able to continue and grow. With this in mind, our central recommendation is that these bills should be incorporated into the fair housing framework created by the City Council. Doing so, we feel, would help give the framework more teeth and accountability and build upon the robust planning and analysis that it already requires. This could look something like, for each 5-year target period, HPD should have to ensure that it reaches a certain AMI breakdown and unit count mix in the aggregate, as exemplified in these bills, that is responsive to the targets they have set citywide through the fair housing framework. In addition, these requirements could be focused specifically on new city finance construction and not include preservation units, where there is less flexibility on changing existing unit sizes and AMI levels. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Salamanca, committee members. Thank you for having me here. I'm Howard Slatkin. I'm the Executive Director of Citizens Housing and Planning Council. And I will try to not repeat points that have been made already because I think many have been. And I'll just reflect briefly that I think the conversation by and large today at this hearing has been reflective of what I think a productive process of oversight and ongoing dialogue between the council and the administration can and should look like. But I'm here as well to testify about concerns about the fixed mandate aspects of these bills and the challenges these raises in making trade-offs among many priorities for the affordable housing production that the city engages in. And the concern is that this could tie the hands of an incoming administration to advance ambitious affordable housing goals, set priorities, and adapt to changing conditions which have never been as perilous as they are with what's been going on in Washington today. I too recommend that the council look to its own fair housing framework and its process for the formulation and oversight of a coherent affordable housing policy for the model to address the issues, the important issues that have been that underlie these bills today. The concerns about trade-offs include that obviously the cost trade-offs that have already been discussed, the inability to adapt to a highly dynamic budget and financial environment, as well as the inherent problem of making one closing dependent on another closing in an already congested and problematic affordable housing pipeline that we know there are intentions to expand significantly. The Fair Housing Framework requires the next administration by next October to produce a strategy outlining affordable housing targets and strategies to address many factors, including equitable geographic distribution of affordable housing, needs for deeply affordable housing, and the needs of seniors and homeless New Yorkers, among other priorities. Our recommendation would be to incorporate the priorities outlined here, including bedroom mix, into that framework for the coming year. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the Land Use Committee for the opportunity to testify. My name is Eustacia Smith. I'm from Westside Federation for Senior and Supportive Housing, or WSFSH. WSFSH develops and operates supportive housing for older adults with extremely low income. We currently have 2,500 units of housing across 31 buildings, with 3 additional buildings in different phases of development. While we totally agree with the intent behind these intros, we have some concerns about their impact as legislation. These intros would drive up costs and shrink the number of apartment units being developed. They could also halt some projects altogether. It is very difficult to build buildings within the zoning and DOB guidelines and also make them financeable. Making the unit size mixes inflexible will mean that some sites would not work for senior housing because we simply would not be able to fit enough units into the site to make it financially viable. Take, for example, our project on West 108th Street, where senior affordable housing is being developed at a lot that once had a city-owned garage. The studio maximum proposed in Intro 1437 would mean that this project would not have enough units for us to finance it. We are particularly concerned about how this might hinder the ability to renovate existing buildings to better serve older adults. We are about to begin renovation on a building that was built in the 1920s as SRO for single women in the arts. The building will be renovated to provide 61 units of affordable apartments for seniors. Due to the pre-existing structure of the building, it would not be feasible to renovate if no more than 50% of the units could be studios. Conversions of existing buildings from SRO to full apartments requires that the architect fit the units within the existing window configuration and egress. We have 3 other SROs that we are hoping to convert to apartments because our experience has taught us that SRO housing makes it difficult for someone to age in place. If we were limited in how many of the units could be studios, these projects may not be feasible or financeable, and they would remain as SRO housing. WSFSH strongly agrees that 1-bedrooms are ideal for many seniors as they age in place, but rather than legislation that is binding, we would prefer to see the City Council work directly with HPD on oversight to achieve these goals through term sheets and to work with city agencies to develop systems to prioritize that those who really need a 1-bedroom in order to age in place are the ones who get them, or that those who need a larger apartment can transfer to a larger unit because their needs have changed, are able to do so without having to re-enter homelessness.
Thank you. Just want to thank you all 3 of our panels for your statements. I just want to highlight it's not a project by project level, but more of a citywide within the 5 years.
Yeah,
just to get clarity on
I
that.
got that.
Yeah. And just to be clear here, look, my district has produced the most affordable housing than any council district in the last 10 years. But when you're going in and you're seeing the unit sizes are too small for my families, first of all. Second of all, we need more 2- and 3-bedroom units. I understand the fear that it's going to hold the amount of productivity that is building. But if we're putting families that have 3 or 4 children in a 1-bedroom unit, these kids are living in their living rooms. It's unfair to them. So it is our responsibilities as elected leaders to come up with policies, laws that HPD must follow so that they have more adequate living spaces. And that is really the basis of these laws. Go ahead, Council Member.
I agree completely with the chair, and I'm going to share with you what I shared with HPD, which is we have to start looking at housing in the city about housing people, not about producing units. And again, when you have families with children fleeing the city, and when you have families with children living in shelter at greater rates than any other demographic group, it's time to start building housing for the people who need it and start measuring our success in housing production in how many people we're housing and not in how many units we are producing.
If I may just add an observation to that, and it's something that Eustace has pointed out. As important in that is, as important to the housing that is produced and that exists is how people access that, how people are placed in that housing. And when you're talking about families with children, that is a thing that changes. The children start out not existing, they're added, and then they eventually move on in most cases. But it's really important to be able to look at the needs of households to transfer from one unit to another in ways that is not as bureaucratically cumbersome or as difficult as it often is to find your housing unit in the first place. So that's an important additional goal in addition to production.
Well, then I would say it's a good thing I have two other bills to reform and improve Housing Connect.
All right, thank you very much. So we're going to call up the next panel. We're going to call up Vincent Madera, Christopher Lee Johnson, and Brandon Cheney. And it'll be in that order: Vincent, Christopher, and Brandon. Vincent? Yeah, you go.
Sure. Thank you, council members, for the opportunity to be here today. New York City urgently needs more family-sized affordable apartments, 2, 3, even 4-bedroom homes. Developers must meet this need, but we also recognize the market forces that make producing these units increasingly challenging. The Children's Village strongly supports this bill. In Manhattan, we built our first 2-bedroom apartments at a home for Harlem Dowling on 127th and Adam Clayton Boulevard. At Eliza and Inwood, we went further and built 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes so families of all sizes can afford and remain in the city that they love. Our concept is simple. Affordability and beauty can live in the same sentence. We believe in integrated buildings where the amenities, finishes, and resources are the same ones we would want in the places we choose to live. Our people deserve this. These decisions carried real financial risk, but we remain committed to building the homes families truly need. I want to emphasize CV is not merely building units, we are building opportunity. Our developments intentionally prioritize proximity to strong public schools, safe neighborhoods, and access to transportation, so families can thrive for generations. Here are the facts. Larger units come with significantly higher per unit costs. More square footage, more walls, more plumbing. In affordable housing, where rents are capped, these costs make margins thinner and risk greater, especially for mission-focused nonprofit developers. Yet larger units provide something critically important: stability. Apartments with 3 or more bedrooms have the lowest turnover rate of any housing type. That stability strengthens neighborhoods, supports multi-generational family, and keeps children rooted in their communities. The bottom line is clear. We face a structural economic and policy mismatch. Regulatory mandates alone will not solve this. We need targeted financial incentives, such as enhanced subsidy levels, additional tax credits, and or providing scoring RFPs that mitigate risk and reward those like Children's Village who are committed in building high-quality, family-sized units. Because we all know that where you live and where you go to school fundamentally changes the trajectory of your life. We stand ready. Thank you, guys.
Oh, it's on? Yeah. Hello, Chair Salamanca, Chair Dinowitz. Thank you. My name is Christopher Leon Johnson. I'm here to show support for the bill Intro 1443, which is sponsored by Sandy Nurse. But I want to make this clear that, look, I support this. I know that the law that would HUD that 30% of every new affordable housing must go to people that make like 30% AMI, like I'd be affordable. But this is what's going on is that I don't know why it's have 4 sponsors on this bill. I know the hot sponsor is Gail Brewer because she has a lot of pull in the city council. Shout out to Gail Brewer because I know if she was here, she'd be asking a lot of questions to the people that would be opposed to this bill. The issue I'll have is that we have to start fighting back against these affordable so-called like luxury developer nonprofits like Open Air for All and Housing Justice for All and the Housing Conference, which is ran by Rachel Fee, that would be opposed to a bill like this because they believe that if you get 30%, if you mandate 30% to a developer, it's going to cut into their profits and to their money coming in from the developer. So, like I said, we have to make it where that every development get pushed up a certain amount of percent must go to people that make less than a certain amount of money per year. While at the same time, I'm saying this right now that the lottery should be a real transparent lottery when it comes to these affordable units, instead of just hand them out to their boys and gals who are politically connected. Because this is what's going on with the lottery, is that they only hand out these apartments. They only give it out to people that's really politically connected. Myself, I'm lucky to be selected, but it's like it shouldn't be like that. A person that's not politically connected should not be cast out of the lottery when it comes to affordable housing versus the people that's been politically connected. So, like I said, I support this bill 100%. The people that makes in less than 30% AMI should be able to have a chance to get these units in the city, even the ones in the Manhattan. But we have to start fighting back against these organizations that are totally against this stuff, because, like I said, it cuts into their profits, like Open Door for All and Housing Conference and stuff like that, and Housing Justice for All or Tennis Block. So thank you so much and enjoy your day. I gotta go. Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brendan Cheney. I'm Director of Policy and Operations at the New York Housing Conference. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. So we support a housing plan that is responsive to community needs for deep affordability, family-sized units, and seniors aging in place, but we do not support legislating requirements relating to these issues applied to all projects. While we understand your desire to fight for these priorities, we believe any such effort should be addressed in the city's term sheets and not in legislation. Legislating term sheets undermines the ultimate flexibility needed to over the course of a year and prevents responsiveness to local needs from HPD and developers. I'm going to try and summarize the rest of it. We support adding more family units, especially in areas with high-performing schools, to provide housing opportunity. Harvard economist Raz Shetty's research shows benefits for children that move into neighborhoods with lower poverty rates, increase earnings as adults. But again, this should be done through term sheets and other efforts by HPD. On the senior housing, I think I'll just sort of echo what's been said earlier in terms of if you improve tenants' ability to transfer, then you can sort of address some of these issues with seniors who have needs for going from a studio to a one-bedroom. Legislating deep affordability will also restrict HPD's flexibility. We definitely support calls for deeper affordability. We have in the past and we still do, but we think it should be done through term sheets. And I just addressing really quickly, Councilor Dinowitz, your statement about wanting to not just count units. I think one of the things that we've been looking at over the last several years is how do we get away from just units and look at sort of what you're saying and get at other issues. And I think one of the ways to do that is to track, which we've been doing, deeper affordability, right? Not just total units, but like how many deep affordability units are they doing, and push for more each year, right? And if it's also family size, it's tracking the family size units and push for more of the stuff we want. So like really using advocacy to do it rather than legislation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'm just going to make a statement on that. At times, it's important that we legislate term sheets, and I'll give you an example. A few years ago, right before COVID, I had a bill called 15% homeless set aside, and HPD was against that bill. And what the bill did was it ensured that every developer that's getting $1 from the city, if they get for city financing, that they have to set aside 50% of their units for homeless families. And there were certain communities that were housing more homeless families in their districts than others. And I'm using my community as an example, where I was doing 15, 25, up to 30%, where you had other communities in other parts of the city that were doing 3% and 5%. There was opposition. And so to make it equitable across the entire city of New York, we passed the law. And now every developer that's getting $1 from the city of New York to build housing, 15% of those units have to be set aside for homeless families. It's unfair that there are certain communities that are getting 2, 3, and 4-bedroom units in their districts, and there are other communities who are just getting studios and 1-bedroom units. And HPD is going to push back on it. So how does the council push back? Well, we use our legislative power and we pass a law, and we require that they do it. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilor, I appreciate that. And I think the 15% set aside has been really important. We appreciate that. I think it's just I think our concern generally is just the more you layer on these requirements, the harder it is for HPD to be flexible. And so that's why we're sort of concerned about, several versions of this.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, that concludes this hearing. Is there anyone else in the public who wish to testify? No? Seeing none, I would like to thank the members of the public, my colleagues, land use and council staff, and Sergeant at Arms for attending today's hearing. This meeting's hereby adjourned.